government forces have taken control of the northwestern town of Al-Hafa. This is the same area UN observers have been trying to reach for several days, but have failed. Syria says its forces cleared the town of armed terrorist groups. Opposition groups say rebels pulled out of Al-Hafa after 8 days of heavy shelling to save the lives of civilians.
Indiscriminate shelling, unquestionable suffering, gross violations of human rights. Not the first time such accusations have been levelled against the Syrian regime. This time they come from Amnesty International, after extensive testimony was gathered by its researchers in Syria. In towns and villages in the north, like Aleppo and Idlib, Amnesty says it's documented many new cases of reprisals and extrajudicial killings.
The civilian population is very much at the receiving end, getting caught in the conflict and being, quite frankly, mercilessly targeted by government forces who have been pounding towns and villages, going into people's homes, taking young men out of the houses and executing them in front of their families and burning down their homes.
Amnesty said its researchers spoke to more than 200 residents in 23 towns and villages since mid-April. In Aleppo, they say they watched Syrian troops and their militia open fire at a peaceful rally, killing and injuring protesters and passers-by. They also gathered testimony from many innocent civilians.
Well, people were obviously desperate to tell their story in the hope that if the world knew what was really happening to them, the world would do something. The one question that everybody was asking, everybody where I went, was why is the world not doing anything? Why is the world standing by while we're being literally slaughtered?
Talk of such aggression is not new. For the last few days, more and more diplomats have been using the term civil war to describe what's going on inside Syria, although the government continues to blame armed terrorist gangs for the violence.
France's foreign minister says he will contact allies to implement tougher sanctions against Syria's top government officials. But that's not all.
So we need to go much faster in the Security Council and put the objectives of the Annan Plan under Chapter 7, that is to say, make them obligatory, with the threat of very strong sanctions. Remember that the Annan Plan involves stopping violence, the withdrawal of the army from the towns, the transportation of humanitarian aid, in other words, everything that would make possible the advance of a political transition in Syria and the departure of Mr. Bashar al-Assad.
Russia is denying US accusations that the military equipment it's sending to Syria is being used against the civilian population. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov says Moscow is only supplying anti-aircraft defense systems that do not violate international laws. But he also made his own accusations against the US.
They are providing arms and weapons to the Syrian opposition that they can be used in fighting against the Damascus government.
Russia's foreign ministry later said Lavrov's remarks were mistranslated, and what he really said was the US is supplying anti-riot equipment to the region. US Secretary of State Hillary Clinton quickly responded.
The United States has provided no military support to the Syrian opposition. None. All of our support has been medical and humanitarian to help relieve the suffering of the Syrian people.